recording.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. The date is Thursday, April 18th. The time is 7:01. May we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Bendy?
Here.
Commissioner Bowe?
Here.
Commissioner Grau?
Here.
Commissioner Halting?
Here.
Commissioner Metze?
Here.
Commissioner Tunnel?
Here.
Commissioner Leduc?
Would anyone like to amend, add, or delete an item to the current agenda? Hearing none, is there any public comment on non-agenda items? I'd like to move to approve the regular board minutes of April 4th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And on to the reports. As president, I have noticed a great job throughout the parks. Everything looks really good. There's been a lot of work obviously going on, but the parks look well prepared for our patrons, and I know there's a lot of time that's going into that, so thank you. And looking forward to all the things getting active. So is there a report for the attorney? Okay. And turn it over to Executive Director Mountcastle.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I know Allison went around and introduced everybody, but warm welcome to Allison Riker, our new marketing. You can do marketing too, Allison. Yeah. Human resources.
This is how you tell Margaret?
Surprise. Surprise, Margaret. our new human, our new human resources director for the Park District. Yes. Sorry about that. Welcome, Allison. She's been here a little over a week and just jumping right in. And Diana and her are working together very well and getting out and meeting staff and seeing the facilities. So we're excited to have her. I wanted to mention, and I cannot remember if this is my retirement brain, I'm calling it right now, but so I got a question from Commissioner Matza about the AEDs. Did I tell you guys that we got support from the affiliates for that? Okay, so, and how that came about, because we talked about this, the gentleman that had come to the meeting from baseball, and he was saying there was a grant, but then he didn't really step up, but then we heard back from baseball wanting to give, and they had this whole idea of, how much everybody should give. So I'll just run through the numbers just to remind everybody that the total purchase for the outdoor AEDs with the electric, so it had gone up a little bit since we talked to the affiliates, but they've seen this, is $46,756. That's for 4 locations. And so the Park District will be putting in $22,682. The soccer affiliate will be putting in $8,407, and football will be putting in $5,875, and then Park Ridge Baseball will be putting in $9,791. So we're greatly appreciative for that donation. Of course, we budgeted this entire amount, so that'll be a nice little bump for the budget. So I wanted to mention that. Really, most of my time in between meetings with Oakton, for Oakton, and meeting with a lot of community people is I'm preparing for John, who will be starting, as we all know, May 1st. So we're getting my files and everything in order, and then preparing a training schedule with him. So I will be reaching out to him again in the next week when he gets back from his vacation. And then the very last thing is a nice surprise we got at one of the Oakton meetings is this beautiful shovel. They said they give it for their good clients, or I don't know how they put it. Spending a lot of money, right? So this will go, I don't know. I will not be here to figure out where this will go. But probably over at Oakton, I'm thinking. But it's really nice. I mean, it's got the I can pass it around, or you guys.
You
can look
should just garden with it. and
I know, somebody said that. I'm like, no, that's not mine, it's the district, so. That's very nice. So,
Suvi.
You want to take up gardening in your retirement?
maybe, get a whole long list, so. But it was really, it was really nice. So they presented us that at the last meeting we had with them. No, it's decorative. You could use it for a real shovel, but I don't think I would do that, yeah, so.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
So if you spend $30 million.
Well, I don't know what the threshold is, but yes, we made that threshold, whatever that was, right?
What a bargain.
So I will be leaving that,
Silver level, because it's not the gold. Okay.
many other things.
Go
So that's all I have this evening, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. All right. That's on the, oh, sorry. We'll just keep going. Marketing and public relations, is there any questions on the general report? If not, we'll go to the discussion on electronic sign. This was a request that we discuss this at a board meeting, and so Margaret, we were waiting for Margaret to come back so she can run us through what we've done in the past, where the city stands on this, and then some different information in terms of the marketing side of it.
Yeah. We just wanted to also get consensus from the board of how you'd like us to
Right.
proceed. So there's a couple different conversations to be had. Gail and I kind of didn't go over how we'd like to structure this, but my thought was actually to start more with some of the discussion points to consider that were on the second page of the memo. Particularly, I know sometimes we don't come off as being like really supportive of electronic signage, but my part is really kind of that second from last bullet. And I do believe electronic signs are effective, but when I think about an electronic sign, I know it's part of our capital improvement projects, like it's a capital expense. And we have finite dollars, right? Finite. We do not have infinite dollars to spend on capital projects. And every year we have a long list of things that we need to get done, and we're always cutting things. So when I look at an electronic sign, I know it's probably going to be at the expense of another project. So I try to think of it more on a global scale. And if we get an electronic sign, that means we might not be doing another facility or park improvement. And I find when we spend the money on our facilities and parks to make improvements, we get the return on participation, and it's much greater than any messaging could bring in. So that's where I struggle with an electronic sign, because I know down the road it's going to still be on that capital replacement plan too. So we're going to need ongoing maintenance, and we're going to need to replace it at a certain point. And we've done a lot in the last 10 years that I've been here, and we have improved many facilities, but there's still some things that need to be addressed. Like I look at the South Park building, the skate park, Emery Cottage is empty, Wildwood, the program center, those bathrooms still need a little help. So I just kind of look at it more on a global scale. So I think first would probably be that consensus that this is where we want those capital dollars spent.
Yeah, and I think we can talk through some of the other points as well.
Sure.
I guess one question I had, did anybody get any, I know the last time we talked, we said if you guys wanted to talk to aldermen. Did anybody get any feedback from the aldermen?
From the mayor. I talked to him a week ago on Saturday, and he told me that he's good with 207 and Park District getting signs, electronic signs on busy streets. He's not interested in businesses. So he is, he says if you go beyond that, Joan, no, Main Park, no. But he was good. So, and I have to push back, but I'm going to send out something that I found online about marketing, and the return on investment can be for billboards is a staggering 495% return on investment, 500 return on investment. So,
Yeah, but this isn't a billboard.
well, it's the same thing, and I don't think, I think all those people on the tollway, they spent lots more money than we would be spending on, these signs. So, I think, that you have to have a variety of marketing, and billboards or signage is one of them. So, I disagree strongly with your interpretation that you should only have.
So maybe we can talk through the other points, and maybe
Yeah.
that'll point out some of the,
So, do you want to talk about the council meeting that you found where,
Yeah, I can, sure.
yes,
City council went over this in September. There was a COW meeting, lengthy 15-minute, 20-minute discussion about electronic signs. They kept dropping the Park District's name as an example, but there wasn't a lot of consensus.
right.
They couldn't even get 3 people to say yes at the turn. Now, talking to the mayor, it's good that you have somebody who's
In the corner.
interested
Right.
in it, but and this was 6 months ago, and we haven't made a push for it. But they brought up a lot of good pros and cons for it. But unless the city council gets behind it with consensus, city attorney made it very clear that they have total control over this. They can make any kind of rules or stipulations they wanted. They did, like Commissioner Benji said, they wanted on only main fare-throughs. So you're not going to get one at what was the park?
Main
Yeah,
Park?
like Northwest Park or
We wouldn't put one.
we wouldn't, and I understand that, but they were very adamant about it would have
If they
to be
made an ordinance,
south,
yeah.
it'd have to be 2 busy streets. If there's even a single busy street, they don't worry about residents complaining. So I think it would be prudent if we were serious about doing this, that you can go back and you can watch that COW meeting, and you can
good
get
idea.
that exact feeling of what they how they felt with it, because they did give us a lot of good examples about how the park could do this and how the park could do this. So I was reading it, like trying to take notes, going like this, and then I passed everything off to Commissioner Holting, or let her know that I saw it and the timestamp on it. But after that, if staff still feels like we could do this and we get consensus here, I think that's a good place to start. If you watch it and we get a lukewarm feeling from staff and lukewarm feeling from us, it's going to be a really hard push to get it done.
there wasn't even consensus from council to take it back to city staff for them to draft
So, yeah.
a new ordinance. So it wasn't even like, oh, draft us something and we'll consider it. There wasn't even consensus to take the next step to draft.
Do you
We-
know why it came up, though? Like, why was it even discussed?
I don't know if they were talking about, I think it was something with PACE, with how PACE has
It was the
electronic
PACE.
signs.
It was
right?
Pace
Yeah.
Pulse.
And so when they got into the bigger thing, okay, well, what other government entities?
Mm-hmm.
And then they went to the school, but every time they gave an example, they were using the Park District.
Because we've talked to them about it, right?
Because we talked to them about it. And,
Right.
and I know previously we didn't want to hold up anything for projects because it would be a big push.
Right.
But the staff kept giving them the carrot, saying, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you could do this and you could do this. And then the alderpersons weren't very
Right.
enthusiastic about it. But that was 6 months ago, and maybe
Right, so this is one of those topics in this community that's gone circular like for years and years and years. So it's not that we are opposed to this kind of marketing, right? And this kind of marketing, since it's been talked about, has evolved, right? Marketing in general has evolved. One of the aldermen I talked to at the activity center, he said, well, everybody gets everything on their phones now, so it's a very different scenario.
Not true.
Well, I'm just talking through what I heard. So,
Is that true?
this is what I was relayed to me. I'm just speaking about something I heard from one alderman, just like you heard from the mayor, right? So everybody has their opinions on this topic. So I just want to go through a couple other points. And then I think, like Margaret said, we just want your consensus. We don't want, staff should not be spending staff time if we don't have a consensus to go talk to the city, right? That's how we work. We work by consensus. So just so everybody understands, and I think we do, that this is a city code, unlike our variances that we've been getting for other things, like the poles at Oakton, right? That's in the code, heights of poles, but it's just, you're looking for a variance. This is a whole new code, right? So it's not like we can just go ask them to do this. They have to, like Commissioner Matza said, and it's a great explanation, that they, and Commissioner Holting, they have to first decide, right? If they're going to approve it. And then if they are, now the district can say, we're interested, and they may talk about it again, right? So that's number one. We did put traffic counts. I didn't want staff to go back and do a lot more work on, getting new traffic counts and new prices until we heard more from the board. So when we did the traffic counts, they were very similar on the major streets, and that is in the memo, and we have those numbers from back in 2016. So obviously we'd need a new traffic count, right? But I think if you take the traffic count into consideration, Tui is the highest, and Tui is also more central to where our residents are going by, right? And that's our major users. And that's where we want to, we want to take care of our residents first. So they're going to be more likely to go by Tui than Oakton. And we know that, for sure. So we showed you a mock-up of Oakton, and we did not, when we talked about this with Oakton, and it's still the case, we don't want to hold up putting a sign out at Oakton, right? And that could be a decision. The board could say, I don't even know if they'll let us complete the project without an address sign. We'd have to put something out there. But that could be an option. Don't put in the sign till they decide, because you don't want to put in a sign and then change it, go back and change it. And this is what we went through zone. Oh no, we have to go back for signs. That's what we have to go back for sign approval on signs. It's a whole different package, and that'll happen in the fall. So there is time to get a feeling from the city. So the other thing in this is what we do is get staff's opinion, right? You heard Margaret's major reasoning. My major reasoning is this, and I'd have to see that article, John, and I'd like to see it.
Send it to
And I agree with you on big signs, like, for example, that are along an expressway. So this would be a smaller sign. This would be like a sign the size of what we have out here with a couple lines of information. So that you've got to compare apples to apples when you look at the numbers, right, of what it will, what it will do for programming. Our programming, and I'm not going to say it's always strong, right? We always need more participants. But we are a district that has, we're in a great situation that people participate. We have, the only place probably is the fitness center right now that, we're always looking to add and to improve and get more members. Now, that doesn't mean here and there. We look for more participants in all programs. But so you've got to look at the whole picture, right? And what are we as a community, and what is our goal with this, right? And what are our issues? And then what is the technology? And to me, the technology and how people are getting their information is, other ways that they didn't 10 years ago. So I don't think it's good investment anymore. I used to think so, but that's not how we make decisions. So you tell us if you want us to approach the city again. We've done it before, and spend staff time. And if you want it at Oakton, we need to know that too now, because they'll be going for, the signage package. So yeah, like a consensus, like yes, no, give your comments.
I just want to say that I think that Tui would probably be the better location, and
I would absolutely agree with that.
and so therefore I think that we can table this for now and talk about this more in terms of when we're doing our capital, like what the trade-offs really are, rather than just saying there's trade-offs. Like we can see what the trade-offs are. So that's what I would suggest.
I would absolutely agree with this. I absolutely don't think that putting a potential fly in the ointment for Oakton would be worth it, especially given how that location is. And I wanted to say thank you, Margaret, for your well-researched answer. I mean, I think we all know that a Google search and somebody with a marketing background are not equivalent things. And I absolutely both agree with and defer to your expertise.
I would say, like, I missed the National City bank sign at South Park. But so like if there was a way to get corporate sponsorship or some type of sponsorship, not there. But I think too, like Centennial makes sense to me. But I have to look at the risk versus reward too. I have to think a lot of people, I know this firsthand just from my field, people tend to look at their phones when they're stopped and parked. And I worry about adding to the distraction. That's me personally. I know that if you go by any car, people are on their phone looking at it. So I would have to say that I would cautiously support it, not at Oakton, but definitely at Centennial in the future if that's something that you guys thought that was worth pursuing. That's just my opinion.
I would say I don't think for Oakton. I mean, I would say maybe the staff puts together a list and says, "Hey, this is our if we were allowed to, we would like one ABC, right? Like the Centennial Fitness Center first and whatever, and then ask the city because if the city's a hard no, then why waste any time past that, right? But for Oakton for this specific subject, I don't want to hold up anything. I think the marquee, the design address seems fine. Because it might not even get past city council anyway, and I would be open in the future to a sign with the city's blessing.
Thanks for all the information. Because, when we first had this conversation, I remember driving by Oakton and thinking, boy, wouldn't this be a great way to advertise the upcoming ice show if it had a different, up-to-date announcement about what was currently happening. And that, you'd get people that are driving by. So it actually would, instead of keeping it static all throughout the winter, because it's so hard to change the sign and the lettering and all that sort of stuff. But, you bring up some good points about it is an expensive proposition to do that. And, just while we're having this conversation, it occurs to me that when I drive by some of our signs that we have, the sign itself doesn't reflect the great facility that it's advertising. And so I think to myself, well, what are we really trying to do here? If it's a local community thing, potentially you're going to hear about it through a variety of different messages. The sign is one, but there may be multitude of other things that are out there. And so given, that there are built-in conflicts that are going to make this difficult. I think probably the overall thing might be to at least improve the signage so that it's doing and reflecting the great things that are going on in those buildings. Obviously, one of the signs that I think comes to mind is the one on Toohey. But driving by Oakton, that sign certainly could use an upgrade too. So my initial thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great to have something that's easily programmed, because these signs can be programmed right over a cloud-based interface where you're sitting at your desk and you can update it, on a daily basis if you go to that extent. Maybe it's a little bit more than what we're ready to do, not only financially, but also we've got so many other things going on. So my excitement is not there as much as it was before. So
I agree with a lot of the points that have been made already, that Centennial might be a better place, and in the overall balance of considering the factors that we have to deal with right now, I'm not enthusiastic about pursuing it. The fact that council just discussed it and it's tepid, but I do agree with Commissioner Bowe, just that our look and feel, our branding and our modernity, is that a word, of our signs could use a refresh. So I think you've spent it, I would say staff has spent enough time on this for now and we can table it.
Okay, well, obviously, Oakton, if we have money to spend there, because you have to spend all your money there, and we have, we're $2 million under, I think the $75,000 that the sign would cost is not a bad way to go. Now, I would say to go to the city with our plan to say, okay, we want the sign here, and you ask the city, okay, will you do this for it? Will you pass this? And that's how I would approach it, not not the other way, waiting for them to do anything. I think you just say, will you pass this or not? So anyway, but the point is that everyone gets their information from a lot of variety, not only the phone, word of mouth, news, even newspaper, whatever, they just get it. And this is, there is a return. The money we spend on whatever sign it would be, wherever it would be, would increase our branding, our visibility, our programming, and so you would get your money, it would come back to you. I know that was the report, well, that was the article that I read 6 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever it was, that said, Hoffman Estates did this, and their programming went through the roof. So this is their park district, and they put it on the highway.
Right.
Now, here's the thing, you say, okay, people get their information on the phone, great, but you know what about the people who are coming from Niles or Des Plaines, and they're going by there every day? They're not looking to go, they're not going to the Park Ridge Park District website to look at stuff. So this is how they get their information. They see it, and they think about it, and it's I don't know. It's just, I really, we're in the 21st century. This is how people do it. People are, buying these things, and there's a reason for it, because they say, look at me, here's our facility, come visit us, whatever it is, and it just highlights, it makes it seem interesting to people to come to our new facility. So, golfing, the dog park, skating, and the new the indoor building. So people are, they need to know, I don't know, I think whether it's Oakton, I think that would be the smartest place to go. I mean, anyone can always do a 2E1, but, this is a brand new facility, brand new renovation, you put your sign there. But if no one wants to do that, I'll be happy with any sign that we get, because this town needs it. We can clutch our pearls all we want about how it could change the town, or the sky is falling, but it's not true. And there's just, I don't know, it's just a great way to get your word out and to say, this is a great facility, come visit us. And that's what it's all about. So anyway, I don't know.
I just want to make two more points about the current signs, because I couldn't agree more. When I came here 13 years ago, I'm like, this is the first thing I'm going to do. But one of our issues is this topic keeps coming back up, right? So that's why we haven't replaced Centennial, because we keep waiting to try to do an electronic sign, and we know that sign is, South Park sign, fell apart on us, right? So I think that's at one point, we are very aware that this is not how we want to market ourselves with the current signs that are at Oakton, and that won't be there anymore, so that's one down. And then it's Centennial. And just to point out that 75,000, these numbers were from 2016, so it'll probably be, of course, expected to be a little more.
At a conference, that price.
Yeah. So anyway, I hear the consensus that we should table this now until we talk about Centennial, and that we're not going to consider this for Oakton at this point. Correct? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have Human Resources here. If there's any general questions under Human Resources, Director DeGangi will be talking about policies as we move through the agenda toward policy. So that's all I have.
Thank you, President Tuttle. We have 2 items tonight, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Larson.
Hi. My board report starts on page 12, and certainly if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I did want to highlight 2 things. One is the second bullet point, which is about the fund transfer we were able to do for 2023, which was $950,000. So as a reminder, we had budgeted a fund transfer of about $271,000. We projected, as we were going through the 2024 budget process, a transfer of $800,000. and we were able to do 950,000, which is awesome. So that gives us a little more money in capital for this year. Good job. Thank you. It was all of us. Wish I could take credit, but everyone played a role in that. So that was really exciting. And then also with the first bullet point, so this will be the last board packet where you'll see December numbers, because at the May 16th board meeting, we'll have the auditors here who will be able to present the final audit to the board. So where we are in that process now is they've just sent the draft to me. So I'm now reading through a lot of documents and then I still need to add certain statistical information and things like that. So I'm working with them on this final piece, and then they will be here on the 16th to present it to you. So it's very exciting to be at the end of that process too, and I certainly learned a lot. Not so enthusiastic about audits anymore.
Girl Scout badges, like first budget.
Oh my gosh, yes. Margaret, make a note of that. I feel like we need that.
If
That
you
would be
need to know
awesome.
where to order badges.
Yeah. Thank you.
I can hook you up.
That would be very exciting. As far as IT, I just wanted to highlight that IT is working with the Oakton team. So Terry and his team and White to make sure that we've got everything we need for Oakton. So it's really early in the process, but it's such a big project, and we want to make sure that all the data ports are exactly where they need to be. They're working on cameras and sound systems, and we wanted to also start with that for the owner purchased items to make sure we can, that chunk is taken care of before we start looking at everything else. Are there any other questions about my packet? Okay, great.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Larson. I move to approve the payment vouchers in the total amount of $1,259,067.09. Second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions about the payment vouchers for last month? No? Mary Beth, you want to do roll call, please?
Commissioner Grau?
Aye.
Commissioner Halting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Matza?
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy? Yes. Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel?
Thank you very much. And move on to the next motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 24-4, an ordinance authorizing the sale and use of used personal property owned by the Park Ridge Park District. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Superintendent Larson, you want to go over?
Sure. So this, I'll come to the board every once in a while, maybe a couple times a year, with some IT equipment that we need to. In this case, we're planning on recycling it with our IT recycler, and this is, as you know, technology doesn't last as long as we wish it would. These are items that we've repurposed and sort of taken from to repair other things. And so these are at the end of their useful life. And also Windows 7, the operating system is obsolete and it's no longer being supported. So we need to get rid of these. I will say I feel like the IT department here is amazing at making things last as long as possible. So it's really impressive that we don't have more things that we're getting rid of. We just use them right up until they absolutely can't be used anymore.
Thank you. Is there any questions about our selling of some IT equipment? Did some of this stuff, this was just the used cannibalized stuff, like normal? This wasn't anything that came out of Oakton when they?
No. The items from Oakton are either being used by staff who are still using or it's being stored until we open up
Normal
again.
course of IT.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, if there's nothing else. Mary Beth, you want to do a roll call?
Commissioner Halting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Matza?
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Grau?
Aye.
Commissioner Tunnel?
Aye. Thank you very much. And that concludes finance.
Thank you very
Superintendent
much.
Larson. And I will turn it over to Recreation and Commissioner Leduc.
Thank you, Commissioner Matza, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Armour.
Thank you.
A few highlights from the recreation report that starts on page 31. There were, of course, many springtime events held throughout the month of March for all age groups, as well as a spring break camp and, of course, the Oakton event. April 1st, we saw the Beyond the Bell registration for the next school year, the garden plot lottery, as well as pool passes and rentals. So that was a very busy day. There's some data in the report about some of those registrations, and then pool passes we'll report next month, but we're on track. I'm pretty close to where we were at last year at this time.
And I was excited to see all the new plots that are going to be put in the community garden. And that's great that that's like such a hot property in town.
It is, yes. And Team Grounds have been hard at work preparing those.
A-team grounds.
The Nature Center visitors did not slow down in March, and neither did the athletic participation. That remains strong as well. The Fitness Center introduced a new pass for evening classes, fitness classes, and that's already boosted attendance. And the winter session of swim lessons concluded and saw another increase over last year. Staff's busy working on the summer brochure and hiring and prep for the busy months ahead. And just a reminder, there's lots of upcoming events, but this Saturday is Earth Day at Main Park, so please stop by if you are able. Any questions on the report?
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Are you still hiring lifeguards? Like, is that cycle still?
Well, we are pretty much at maximum
Okay.
right now,
Okay.
Which is
Okay.
yeah, they're
Exciting.
yeah, and it's been definitely a team effort between HR and recreation and getting the word out. And it's been a few years since we've been at that point. But camp counselors, cashiers, open and closed within like a week. We had 100 applicants.
Whoa.
So we shut that down right away. So we're in a really good spot this year.
It's interesting.
So it's hard to close, the lifeguard and camp counselors because there's always last minute,
Yeah.
people who flake out or just don't respond.
So you're maxed
don't show
maxed
up.
out on camp counselors too right now?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just
we're in a really
sometimes I
good
like
spot.
bother people to send their children to apply, and I won't do that anymore. Which is why I asked.
There's
I'm not taking credit for that, but I wanted to know if I should keep bugging people.
sometimes there's last minute, or close to last minute things where we need, the upper management. So if somebody decides they get an internship or a job and they're one of the camp directors, those types of things tend to open up last minute, unfortunately. But yeah, we're in a really good spot already this year.
Good to know. I got hired as camp counselor in May for extra people rolling in at the 11th hour registering. I remember that. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
I had a question.
That's great.
I know a lot of people were signing up for the summer programs and they were immediately put on wait lists. Does that mean with staff, a lot of those wait lists have been pushed out? Or-
Not necessarily. Some have opened up just based on space. At the very beginning, it was like you got to see who registers for what, and then you're like, okay, I can bring this one down and move this one up, and they map out all the spaces. So there was a lot of shifting within the first few weeks of age groups, classrooms, et cetera. Like camps that were low at the beginning, we may have just decided to cancel. We're like, okay, that one's already low. We're not going to wait to see if it fills up because we have this huge wait list in another camp. So there was a lot of shifting and expansion just right off the bat. There's camps that we're always not going to be able to expand, really popular ones just based on space, even though we opened up a lot of spots at the nature camps because of the new facility and space that we have, that one's just always popular and fills up right away. Sports camp fills up pretty quickly. We can only just pack so many kids into the park there. And we did free up a little bit of space because we did end up renting the church down the street for stage school. So that opened up some space at Main Park.
So it's still a work in progress, but
Yep.
you're making progress. Awesome.
Yeah. And there's also, there's a point in time where staff sends out the email like, hey, we see that you're enrolled for multiple camps in the same week. Can you make a decision and pull out? Please, there's other people on the wait list. So there's a lot of communication that goes on and tracking with the staff at Maine Park. So
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, the fireworks,
yes, moving on to the July fireworks intergovernmental agreement. So the fireworks, as we all know, or assume we all know, have been a part of the community for years, but it was brought to our attention last year by PDERMA that a best practice would be to create an intergovernmental agreement between the entities involved. So staff has been working with City and District 207 for months, going back and forth on the agreement you have in front of you. And we're now here to open it up for questions and feedback. And the school district and city are doing the same. So prior to being approved by all, see if there's any feedback or questions.
I mean, it looked good and comprehensive to me. I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah, the legal teams from each entity have also reviewed and made their comments as well.
And I think that most of these duties, we were just putting it on paper, right? I mean, nothing's really changed with what the organizations are doing in general.
So it helped eliminate a few different, like smaller written agreements and rental agreements. So now it's, simplifying things a little more by putting it in one document.
I mean, other than there should be a point about Julie's daughter always being obligated to come back and sing the national anthem.
Right, exactly.
Agreed.
So I thought it was great. I think it's interesting that PDERMA knows enough to say, like, do you have an agreement for this?
Well, we had an issue that came up between the fireworks company and the school district being on their grounds last year. So that's kind of what sparked it. They're like, can we see all the paperwork? Like, why are they asking for this? So it was between them that we were navigating between the two groups. And so they're like, this would really, help you guys out because they'd have to either get on our contract to eliminate that issue or, so that cleans that up a little bit too.
Good.
So they're like, where's your intergovernmental agreement? And we're like, oh, what?
We just work well together. It tells you a lot about what goes on behind the scenes, reading that.
Oh, it's big, yeah.
Has anybody ever done an estimate of how many people observe or participate?
But how many people observe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really rough estimate.
Right. I mean, but it's just so extensive that, I mean, you can watch it from parks that are like Franklin, fills up, and it's just remarkable that, and a great event for people to take part in.
We have a wrap-up meeting with the group, and, we're like, you guys are the ones that are out there. What's your estimate compared to past years? And they have, it's, again, just an estimate, but they wouldn't be counting those parks site. It would just be in the vicinity.
Right.
So bottom line, are we more liable or more responsible for anything in particular? Highlight it for me, because
No, there's
nothing.
it doesn't change any of the things that we're currently doing or change any liability. It's just putting what we're doing on paper.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, April, to you and your staff for all your hard work and for balancing the many balls of the summer camp system. So I think that's it for recreation. And now passing it to Commissioner Bendy for Buildings and Grounds.
Okay. Superintendent Wolf, can we have your report, please?
Thank you. So my report begins on page 48 of the board packet. Obviously, it's already kind of weird just to kind of go through the dates and look at this with Oakton because just in such a short amount of time, it's progressed already a lot. So it continues to move forward. They've actually, even since this report and this picture, have gotten the entire concrete floor out of the inside of that building. So That's been completely removed. So there's a lot moving on in a lot of parts of that on a lot of parts of that project. So everything's moving along well. As mentioned by Superintendent Larson, we're working towards a couple of additional bid packages still. IT being one, but that's kind of the IT infrastructure and small electronics and some of the other finishes and furnishings and things like that within the building. We're also working towards other various different aspects of the project. So I did put this note here about the driving range netting and poles bid package. It was a bid package that came in over budget for us. And the construction manager, Craig Pulte, was not really thrilled with the way that had come in and felt like there was, some room for improvement. And so he wanted to give that another go, which I thought was great. That he took that approach and took that, sense that, what, I think I'm not understanding why it came in here. And so he wanted to go at it a different way. So he, circled the wagons with his team, reached back out to me the next day, and just let me know how they were planning on approaching that. So at this point, I'm just waiting to hear back from them on what their time frame is with that. But with that said,
$2 million.
Hmm?
It was a $2 million budget, right?
It was correct, yes. Yeah, so it came in at, $2,482,000 for that. So there were a handful of things that, had evolved for that. And it was always with that area, it was kind of, it was like an allowance set aside for that section. It's a little bit different. That wasn't the main, focus of the project. The main focus of the project had always been, the rest of the park and the facility and everything else. So they kind of had an allowance to manage that. And as we've talked through, that and how it interacts with the property, and they had some ideas early on that they were trying to chase down where they thought, well, we can, do this and do that. They started to not really work out. And so, working with the engineers they had on their team, they came up with this plan, as they were going out to bid, and as they, had this out to bid, they had this understanding that, the engineering behind these poles of this type is a different type of structural engineering, because these are tall metal cylinders that just act in a different way than a steel beam, structural beam. And so one of the great things about White and how they approach these is that they work with, and this is going throughout the project and why the project is being delivered so successfully, is that they work with, their team of engineers, and they look at all the other projects, but they are also working with contractors and subcontractors along the way to identify efficiencies in how to build and construct and to do these things. And so they're taking a new approach and bringing on a contractor to kind of use them as like a sub-consultant to talk through, like, what did we miss? What did we not do and understand right? How can we redesign this and redo this so that it is a little more efficient budget-wise? So there's also been some changes in what Pederma requires with driving range netting, in that you have to have these breakaway clips so that if it gets a certain, wind speed, that the clips break loose and allow the net to break free before it causes damage to it, because they had so many issues with netting and doing replacements. So that's something that's required that gets built into this. But by design, that should lessen the wind load on the poles, which should change how that. So, some of these things they're going back at and taking another look at. So, just in the conversation, I feel really good that they're taking that additional look and pushing forward with that. So, hopefully, we'll find some savings there. Beyond that, I also just want to mention it did not make the board package, but we do finally have an agreement in place with a contractor to do that stair replacement at 531 that we had talked about so many months ago. So, so we have a solution in place, and we'll be moving forward with that over the next several weeks or a month, which will then allow staff to have full access and use of those basement areas. So. And then finally, I do also want to let the board know that we have reached a verbal tentative agreement with the SEIU local on the negotiations of the contract. So we'll be finalizing that, redlining it, and then bringing it to the board at an appropriate time once we've passed it around to make sure everyone's in agreement with the actual language that we're working on, but just in context and verbally, we're in a good spot with that. So otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on my report.
I was wondering how many trees had to be removed at Hinckley.
At Hinckley,
Yeah.
there was a number of trees down. So the area behind the field 3 and the playground, there was a grove of evergreen trees there, Austrian pines, and they were like half dead and dying anyway. And so that space there was identified for the water detention space anyway, so I don't know the tree count, but those were the trees that were removed.
I was just wondering which ones.
I'm not sure. I don't want to say that no other trees were touched. There may have been a maple tree nearby there that was lost, but those were essentially the only trees there.
I was just wondering because that is one of the shadier playgrounds. I used to take my kids there in the
Right.
summer when it was hot as heck. So
Yes.
I saw the picture and I was like, but I think it's just looking out onto the
it's-
field.
yeah,
I
it's-
haven't had a chance to drive.
That angle is looking, towards the church with the parking lot there. So those are still those large cottonwoods, and those are the few. I think those are actually maples that line the parking lot of St. Andrew's Church there.
Yeah.
So there's still shade out there, and then there's also going to be a picnic shelter nearby, and of course,
That's right.
we'll plant some additional trees. Once the project's completed, and we see that it's appropriate to put some in there if needed. So
Okay. Thank you.
absolutely.
And just to add, for Oakton, we are planning on, staff met this week to talk about our kind of next list if we get lucky enough to be, to go there. And I think that worked very well with the board last time. We bring you a list of, here's our priorities if we, have this funding, and that, when White says it's time to make that decision, and then, we just go down the priority list. So of course, there's a whole nother list. But so we're very lucky that we're at this point. And, just to reiterate what Terry's saying about White, they pointed this out at our meeting that, if you had, another, if you had a separate architect and you had a separate lead on the project,
Construction manager.
construction manager,
Yeah.
these things, like they're going back and researching prices. Like one example was the flooring, right? We had a certain flooring spec. So they're going back and looking at what the cost and putting that in as an alternate for flooring. I mean, the work would not be happening to this level, but they're all coordinating within themselves. And then, of course, they're on the hook with this GMP, right? So the whole process is very different than what we've dealt with in the past, like with a big project like this or something else. But so it's great we're getting to talk about it. And then Superintendent Larson is going to go through the finances on our end again and look at the interest, of course, because that's some of the money we're, looking at. We have for sure the money we put aside in capital and the referendum money, but it's the interest that, is a little volatile. So we definitely don't want to go over what everybody thinks the safe amount is. So we're very cognizant of that as well. So.
Yeah, and I'm diving back in through our owner purchased items and kind of organizing everything there. So as we're working through these different areas and packages, as such as the IT items, we're making sure that we understand how much we have to work with in that area, because we kind of identified things by room. So now we're gathering everything back up to say, okay, overall, how much do we have to work with for this area? So. Yeah.
It's getting real.
it's very
re-
real.
It is. It's real. It's exciting.
Any other
And that
questions or
blown up
comments?
porta potty, man.
Well, that was just torched. That wasn't even blown up.
Any leads on it?
It doesn't.
We don't have cameras out there.
Someone that one of my staff
Right.
knows happened to take a video. that
Saw a
we
video.
but it was
On the video, they
fully
said the whole
engulfed
park's on fire. I'm like,
with the fireplace. Yeah, with the fire department out there fighting it, so it was not.
I have a question, like, just to know, why do we need it to take up the whole floor over at Oakton? Like, was it a bad floor or like?
Oh, for the concrete flooring. So within the floor and just underneath the floor was all the tubes for the R22. So we have to use a new refrigerant now that has a different type of a tube requirement. So that's part of the whole thing.
all
we
under the
have to do.
concrete, right?
It's radiant heat, only in the reverse.
And lean reverse, exactly.
Reverse,
Although we actually
reverse.
have radiant heat underneath that too, so that we don't have permafrost, which then pushes
There's
everything.
a lot going on under that concrete.
We have we have something there to freeze everything, which technically is not freezing, it's actually removing heat, and then something below that to actually heat it up so we don't remove all the heat from below to heat.
The tubes probably needed to be new.
They're bad. They're old. They're getting close to the time where they could corrode out anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a maze down there. Yeah. Underneath the concrete.
It's I don't think it's that dissimilar than like heat pumps and where you're taking away, like you're stealing heat from sharing it with another. It's heat exchange, but you're taking away the heat and allowing it to cool enough so that something will actually freeze to the ground. So, but if you let it all stay frozen and keep freezing and freezing and freezing, you don't have some way to make sure that freezing continues on downward, because we leave that area frozen for years and years and years in a row. It'll just continue seeping down, and it just creates a big block that'll just heave up because you've created this like big chunk of frozen ground. And so you have to have at some point a heat system underneath there to do that. That's where we're recapturing some of the process heat from the systems underneath
To
warm up the ground underneath. So yeah. Yeah.
Fascinating. It is. I know. I know it.
And now you know.
That's in the category you learn something new every day.
Yep.
Yep. And you'll probably never need it because that one never comes up in trivia questions. But one of these days.
You're prepared though.
I see the team over here jotting things down for trivia right now. So anyway, any other questions on my board report?
Okay. All right. Okay, talk about the Hinckley Pool sandblasting. I move to approve BP&T Construction as the lowest responsible bidder for the Hinckley Pool sandblasting project in the amount of $58,700, and to authorize the executive director to execute and deliver the agreement. Thank you. Discussion.
So we talked about this at the last meeting and discussion, but there has been an exciting development on this one since then, and that is that we will actually be able to move forward with this project this spring before the pool. So I didn't expect that, and in my experience, which I'll have to acknowledge is starting to get kind of old, but in my experience, putting down this sort of product and this temperature and this time of the year was not ideal. Well, they said, new products, it's not really that much of an issue. Obviously, we do paint the pool this time of year anyway, but they said the products that are specified here and that are meant for this, it's really not a concern at all. And the contractor that we're working with has the availability. We are going to let them know, and they're planning on starting on Monday. We worked all the dates with everybody in the rec department and the maintenance staff to make sure that the dates all aligned, and built in a lot of extra buffers in there. And everyone feels very comfortable and confident that we can get this done this year. So we did already purchase the paint that we were going to use to paint it this spring. So we're going to return that paint and save our staff literally hundreds of labor hours in pool prep this season. So we're very excited about that.
That's great.
Yes, I'm very.
What are you going to do with those hundreds of hours?
They're going to not have to work as many hours of overtime, and they might actually get to go see their kids' baseball game once in a while this spring, I hope.
And the price is like unbelievable.
The price is really good. Yeah, we're very happy about that. So
Big range of bidders.
it was a huge range, and this contractor has done work similar, if not exactly the same, at other park districts, including Glenview. So they had great references. They've successfully worked through projects. I understand the scope, so yeah.
Is there anything in the scope of work that was different to drive up the cost on some of these bids?
No, I mean, they're all looking at the same sheets of paper, so yeah.
Any other questions? All right.
We
Yeah.
talked about it during the budget, the cost of replacement versus putting Band-Aids on it.
Mm-hmm.
Is this bid and this work still going to give us that 5-year window of?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I would expect it would be a good 5 years before we really have to paint this pool now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Metza,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau,
Aye.
Commissioner Halting,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel.
Aye.
Okay. All right, Centennial Playground surfacing, okay. I move to approve an agreement with Soft Surfaces, Inc. in the amount of $126,000 for the Centennial Playground rubber surfacing replacement and to authorize the executive director to execute and deliver the agreement.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
So first, I want to apologize. We did not discuss this at the last meeting or at a recent meeting, but I am bringing this for approval now because we heard that their schedule is booking up. So this was something that we had planned and budgeted for, although as you can see, it is coming in slightly over budget. The reason that we were holding off was we were starting to wait to see if we were going to have some savings on projects, which we're starting to see and we're becoming comfortable. Plus, we had an additional $150,000 transfer this year in towards capital. And so knowing that this contractor is starting to fill up, the idea of delaying further to be more confident just didn't make any sense. This is in dire need. It needs to be replaced. The rubber surfacing in areas is peeling away and we're patching it. It has holes. So it seemed prudent to bring this thing forward and not even delay by waiting the meeting to have the discussion. So that's why I'm bringing it forward as requesting an approval at this meeting. Part of the overage, about $6,000 of the overage, is because we told them that we wanted to ensure that the old material that's coming out, that old rubber surface, can be recycled and would be recycled. And so they added that in. They do have a process. We did have a process in a location that Lauren had found that does take this stuff and reuses it and grinds it back up for reuse in these types of applications. And so the contractor identified that they also reuse it in their process, and instead of us, having to do all this other third party, that they could handle it themselves, and they'd be happy to do that. So that's part of the overage. The other part of it is because this is not a poured in place rubber, this is rubber tiles. So we're transitioning how that is going to work. I think I've talked about it a little bit at the board meeting when we did capital discussions, and that, the tiles seem to be a bit more durable. And so I think we're going to give this one a try. It should outlast the rest of that useful life of the playground. I think it'll get us to that finish line and be a better spend here for us. And it'll also give us another good opportunity to take a look at playground tiles, which we had used at Nyridge Park, and they've been working out very well for us. So we're kind of excited to do this. I've actually started to get phone calls from other districts because they're like, hey, here you go in tiles. What's with that? No one does tiles. I'm like, yeah, I know. I think they got a bad shake. So it's kind of an example of where, we're again kind of being industry leaders in this area and just, doing our work, doing our research, being willing to kind of take that next step and do these things. So, I think it's exciting, but we're in need of getting this done. So.
How old was that surface?
It's 10 years. It was replaced. That playground and the surface was installed when the pool was replaced. So.
And I mean, that surface was crumbling a few years ago when I was taking my kids there.
Right. We've already had some repairs done on that. So, and it is a very heavily, if not maybe the most heavily used playground. So, but, and that's where we're starting to look at. And I think, the durability of, these rubber tiles, I think we'll be able to kind of see how those are holding up under some of those same conditions in that area. So.
Can those be replaced individually versus?
Yes, and they're also easy to replace. So if something gets cut up, torn up, worn out underneath the slide or underneath the swing or something like that, that's an easy thing. My staff, we can get one of those. There's a special tool you can get to pop one out in the middle. We pop it right in. It's done. We can actually have an inventory of a couple of them at the garage, which we probably will. Once the project's done, so that we won't ever have a delay. Whereas now, if someone damages it or, picks a hole through it just because they feel like digging a hole through it, we're waiting months, if not, a year to get someone on site to fix that and repair it. We can do that on our own. So that's one of the other things I like about it.
I think you need to talk to the school district.
I meet with them regularly, so I'll point it out.
One of their commissioners is familiar with Franklin's playground, and the kids just pick at it.
Yeah. We actually have a really good relationship with District 64 with Noel, so I will share this bit of information with him as well.
I'm sure there's more than one playground.
I'm sure there's plenty. Yeah.
What's the time frame on this?
You know, I don't know. We'll have to see exactly where they're at in the queue once I give them an agreement on this, so.
Thanks for including the part about the recycling.
Yeah.
You know, we've had that conversation about if we're going to invest in these kind of surfaces, what's going to happen to it when we get rid of that kind of surface. So in terms of the recycling program, are there assurances as to how they dispose of it properly and what guidelines that they, you know, can, you know, state that they're following after they've collected all that?
Yeah, my recollection was that they said that they would provide us with some level of, or some letter of certification that it was delivered to such and such facility, and that, you know, what their process was, and that it was going to be repurposed for whatever the use was. So there was going to be some letter of certification that it was recycled.
Okay, any other questions? All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Matza?
Aye.
Commissioner Bendy?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Grau?
Aye.
Commissioner Halting?
Aye.
Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Tunnel?
All right, turn it over to Commissioner Grau for policy.
Okay, we have some updates to our personnel policy manual. I will make the motion and then we'll turn it over to
Thank you.
Director DeGangi. I move to approve all changes to the personnel policy manual as recommended. Thank you.
Yeah, so prior to me retiring, I made a commitment to Gail and this team that I would bring the policy manual up to date for my replacement, at least the legalese. And so down the road, there'll be more changes that will come to you that are not related to legal, but these are solely to get the policy manual up to legal changes. It's important for you to know that we have always practiced what was legal and compliant. We just didn't necessarily have them in the policy manual. So I worked with Ansel Glink, made my recommendations. They tweaked it. There are 13 sections in total. They're pretty self-explanatory. There really was not much room for discussion. There was only one topic that we did discuss, and that is regarding a new whistleblower policy. Whistleblower policy, the only item that we needed to discuss was there needed to be a point person, an officer, if you will, within the district, whereby a whistleblower could bring it to the attention of an individual, an official, someone high up in the chain. And we recommended that official be to be the executive director and an alternate, so that if the executive director is involved or subject to an accusation, you have a second person, and our recommendation is that be the board president. So that was the only topic really that required any discussion at all. And with that, I'll open up for questions if you have them, but they're pretty self-explanatory and kind of easy to get through after you sit down and go through the hundreds of pages that were in policy already. So I thank you, Commissioner Grau, for looking through all that so quickly and returning to me some points.
I
And
know how much work it takes, so I appreciate you doing all this.
I'm thrilled to get it done. I really
I'm
am.
sure you are. You get a gold star.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to look for a consensus to see if we can approve it and
Anybody?
get out to them, please.
Well, I think we're going to vote on it. Did anyone have any
Great.
comments about
Thank you.
the persons that we're directing to be the, what does it say, the audit?
The official auditing official, it's called in the world of whistleblowers.
I think it makes sense, right?
Who would be any other alternative, like someone in HR or?
The HR director could be an alternate person, but my recommendation is to stick with executive director, the top person, and have the board president second. So there's a high level and separate responsibilities. But an HR director could be a third. You don't really need a third, and I think it's a little too confusing to have a third person. So an HR director could be an alternate.
And the attorney, I think, in the past have.
Oh, and the attorney,
Yeah.
yes, of course. But there is a third person, I'm sorry, there is a third recourse, and that is the
Attorney
legal, no, it's the state's attorney, I think. State's attorney. So there's a third, but outside of the district.
I think the executive director makes sense if there's hijinks going on would think that person would be,
Yeah,
where it should go, so.
yeah.
Well, and I
Yeah.
liked the fact that then the board president is the alternate because if,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if the executive director were involved, then it would be hard to trust anybody immediately
Right.
below them.
Right.
So having somebody that's
They
not
report to the
yeah,
director that.
on
is-
staff, I think is it's good.
Yeah, it would be too intimidating, I think, for an HR director.
Well, because they report to the
Right,
executive
yeah,
director,
we report
right?
to the executive director.
All right. Agreement.
Yay.
Can we have a roll call vote? What?
Do we get a second?
Yeah, somebody said.
You did. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Thank you.
We did have a second.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau,
Aye.
Commissioner Halting,
Aye.
Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Matza,
Yes.
Commissioner.
Aye.
And
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to remind everybody that there was an email sent out, maybe you sent it out, about the sexual harassment training. And,
I sent it.
and we're oh, you sent it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And
okay.
It's recommended that we all do it. It's painless.
Yeah, it is very painless. It's the same that the employees go through. We go through it once a year, and there's absolutely no downside, but only an upside for each of you to do it. You could do it at your leisure and remotely.
I will note that some of us have to undergo similar trainings in our place of work, so.
It sets the right standard also for employees, you know, so it's,
However you get it.
thank you.
And I am done. So intergovernmental, Commissioner Holton. We did.
We already covered all the exciting intergovernmental topics. Electronic signs, the fireworks, so I don't have any further intergovernmental excitement. So I'll turn it back to, we have any, is it back to President Tunnel for communicate? Oh, you. Who does communications and correspondence?
Doesn't matter. We had a, in the packet, there was a email from one of our fitness center users, and it was a very nice, short, very important shout out to the front desk staff, the team over there. I know some of them are new, some have been with us for a while, so that's important, so very nice.
It's nice when people take time to.
Exactly.
send positive comments.
Doesn't always happen, right?
Any new business? We have a special recognition, retirement recognition, so I guess I'll go up here. The spot.
The spot.
I'm getting very familiar this year with this.
Baby boomers. HR gets a hug.
She's a hugger.
Ooh.
A consensual hug.
Are you marketing or human resources? I guess
No,
I was-
I'm HR.
You're right.
Yeah.
So it is my pleasure to recognize Diane DeGangi, our Human Resource Director, who will retire from the Park District at the end of this month. You've only been here for 12 years, I guess. So, and we're the first ever Human Resource Director at the Park District. Your knowledge and expertise in the field has been invaluable. And as you established the department, developed processes and supported staff over the years. The Human Resource Department plays a crucial role in our district's successful operations, serving as a fundamental pillar to guide and support our most important asset, our employees. During her tenure, Diane has been pivotal in developing and managing the growth of human capital. Currently, we employ 61 full-time and approximately 800 part-time and seasonal workers. As the district expanded, so did the Human Resource Department, growing from one-person operation to a team of 3, including a Human Resource Coordinator and the newly added Risk and Safety Manager position. Diane has been instrumental in educating and collaborating with the management team on all HR matters. Some of her significant achievements over the years include
Bulleted list.
researching, writing, and implementing personnel policies, including developing the entire manual upon your hire. Yes. Automating many of our systems, including staff onboarding, annual open enrollment, and payroll, always working towards maximizing the electronic distribution of HR and payroll documents, benchmarking salaries and benefits, completing a compensation study for full-time positions, and implementing changes to keep the district competitive in the marketplace, completing the employment records retention project to meet the extensive requirements set by the State of Illinois Records Commission, assisting with contract negotiations and wage reopeners with the SEIU, implementing the performance incentive program alongside with the executive director, which recognizes employees' exceptional efforts, creating a recruitment strategy with the recreation and marketing departments, which included job fairs, a referral program, and increased advertising, researching employee legal issues and implementing necessary changes, a task that became particularly crucial during the pandemic as Diane navigated the landscape of the ever-changing guidelines and laws. That was not a complicated time, no, was it?
Probably one that caused a lot of gray hairs.
Yeah.
That I've covered up.
You've provided insight, logic, and reasoning during many critical decisions that have affected the district over the past 12 years. You've consistently been ready to address a crisis or a timely project whenever necessary. Not only are you a wealth of knowledge and confidant to the district's employees, but also highly regarded by your peers for extensive expertise in the human resource field. Your relationships with attorneys and human resource associations have also greatly benefited the district. Dan, on behalf of the board and staff, I extend our heartfelt gratitude for your hard work, dedication, and achievements at the district, and I congratulate you on your well-deserved retirement.
Wow.
Where's the plate?
I'm going to speak very,
She has a speech.
very short.
Get them in the good light. Get them under a light.
So this is amazing. Thank you very much. When I first joined the district, this was my first park district ever. I was never in Parks and Rec. I was always in corporate America, publicly traded, privately held. And I wasn't sure what to expect at all, but I knew HR, but I didn't know this industry. And one of the commissioners asked me a few months after I joined, gee, what's your opinion now of the labor force, the resources, the employees? How does it differ from corporate America? And my opinion has not changed one iota in 12 years. And what I told the commissioner, and it was a public meeting, I have found that the employees at a park district are some the hardest working individuals I've ever worked side by side with. And I work for a lot of companies, big companies. They are the most enthusiastic employees I have ever worked with. Smart. The smartest employees I have ever worked with. So what more could you ask for than to run or head up HR for an organization where the employees are passionate, they're smart, and they work their butts off, and they really do. And that opinion has not changed. So what a way to end a career. Thank you very much. Did my Michael Jackson shoes make the picture?
No, do you want them to? I can
No, I don't. For those of you who don't know me, well, I am a Swarovski kind of gal.
Oh.
This is cool. Great job. I can't even.
Yeah,
I want to pass it around. This is just cool. Thank you, whoever picked that out. That was really sweet.
classic. It's the classic.
Your favorite chocolate chip cookie almost.
And lemon
I leave
cookies.
you in the best hands. I will tell you that you cannot retire and go to sleep at night
Any other new business this evening?
Nicole.
I move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're closed.
And Jennifer Leduc was so sweet to make cookies, and she made Diane's